All right, welcome again, everyone, and good evening. This is the Accessibility and Disability Policy webinar series. Today we have Zenaida Olivas with the Texas Workforce Commission, Vocational Rehabilitation Services. The name of this session is a look at pre-employment transition services and new statewide initiatives for individuals with disabilities. So Zenaida, go ahead and take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy, and hello, everyone. I think we had done a previous presentation last year, so this is kind of, I guess it can serve like an update of where we're at with some of our initiatives and additional services that we can provide. Randy, I did shut off the second monitor and I can't see the PowerPoint.
Then maybe you need to turn that monitor back on.
Okay. Are you getting the noise background?
I wasn't talking.
Okay.
I do when I talk, so I'll just mute my microphone. Oh, we're good. I'm not hearing it. Great. Go ahead then.
Okay, great. Okay, so we're going to talk about vocational rehabilitation services, and as you can see from the slide, the purpose is, of course, to help people with disabilities obtain and maintain employment that is consistent with their strength, interest, abilities, and aptitudes. Our services are eligibility-based and tailored to the individual. They're not intended to be emergency services, and they are not time-limited, but are not intended to be provided long-term. They are arranged and provided by a vocational rehabilitation counselor with consideration for individual choices. And this session today, we're going to focus on transition and pre-employment transition services for youth with disabilities who are between the ages of 16 through 22. So basically, our goal with Texas Workforce Commission and working with youth and students with disabilities is to help them prepare for either post-secondary education or employment opportunities. The transition services that we provide help prepare these students to progress from either special education or 504 programs to receiving VR services, and in the process, of course, to help minimize potential delays in service delivery during the transition from high school to employment or post-secondary. And again, these services are eligibility and need-based. So the eligibility criteria, the customer has a physical, we have 4 criterions that must be met. They have to have a physical or mental impairment. The impairment constitutes or results in a substantial impediment to employment. They require of our VR services to prepare for, enter, engage, or advance in competitive integrated employment. And then they must be able to achieve an employment outcome. What I would like to add in this section here is that WIOA states that pre-employment transition funds and services must be available to all students with disabilities. So basically what that means is that now we can provide pre-employment transition services, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about pre-employment transition services later on in the presentation. But the difference here is that now we can provide pre-employment transition services to students who are potentially eligible. That means that they don't even really have to have an application with us in order to receive these pre-ETS services. And again, the eligibility for pre-ETS and being served as a potentially eligible student is that they must be a student with a disability, and they must be receiving either special ed services or 504 services and be between the ages of 16 and 22. And again, if we're serving a customer as potentially eligible, the only services that we can provide are pre-employment transition services. And then, of course, some of the disabilities that we serve are behavioral, mental health conditions, hearing impairments, including deafness, intellectual learning and developmental disabilities, physical disabilities, and of course, vision-related disabilities. I can't hear.
I have to unmute my mic too. Sorry about that. A quick clarification question. Because somebody asked, and you were talking about age 16 and up, but isn't pre-ETS down to 14 years old age, beginning with transition services in school?
Yes, they can. I'm sorry. Yes, that's a good clarification. And okay. We do have, I'm not sure now how old they would be, but we did have some younger kiddos that we grandfathered in on the vision, that have visual disabilities, and they were grandfathered in. So we have some cases that have them can have them a little bit younger. Okay, so transition services, again, the whole purpose of transition services is to help students move or transition successfully from work, from high school to work and independent living, whether it's through post-secondary education, and of course the ultimate outcome is employment. So after they leave, the vocational rehabilitation services continue to be available to them if necessary after they exit high school. And so yes, I apologize. The transition services are a subset of vocational rehabilitation services for those individuals aged 14 through 22. So when we were talking about pre-employment transition services to potentially eligible, these are the 5 categories of services that we can provide. And they are career exploration, work-based learning, counseling on post-secondary opportunities, job readiness, and self-advocacy. So as many of you are aware, our transition counselors work with the schools, the parents, community partners, and students to ensure that the student and the parent or guardian are informed about available services and any associated program requirements as part of a set of coordinated transition services. So our counselors are required to obtain and use existing school records as a source to determine their eligibility and to develop their individualized plan of employment. So again, services on the IPE must be vocational in nature and support and lead to achievement of the employment goal identified on the IPE. Not the case for pre-ETS. For potentially eligible students, they don't necessarily have to have a plan of service. Again, they don't even have to necessarily apply for services, and they can still get served and receive services, but only in these 5 categories. Okay, and then I think we have transition vocational rehabilitation counselors, and they are assigned to various schools and spend most of their time on school campuses. And we also have our regular vocational rehabilitation counselors who have a general caseload, adults, and some high school liaison assignments. And so the transition vocational rehabilitation counselor, they help students and youth with disabilities develop and participate in work-based learning opportunities. They provide information, support, and guidance to transition students, parents, and schools to promote effective transition services. They help eligible students to develop their individual plan of employment. They network with schools, community resources to develop and maintain referral sources to identify and reach transition students with disabilities. They contact and counsel the student, the family, and significant others to help the student complete as many of the transition services included in the IPE as possible. So those are just some of the services that the transition counselor, of course, they can also help access appropriate resources that exist within the community. And then, of course, they act as a consultant to TW staff regarding transition services. And basically, like I said, we have TBRCs assigned to various schools. If you're not familiar with who your transition counselor is or who should be working with your child, I'm gonna, later on in the presentation, I'll put up the names of the regional program specialists, or you can always contact me to find out. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And I think the last time that I presented, the regulations had just kind of been put into effect, and so we were taking off with some of our services and some of our strategies and initiatives related to WIOA. So basically, many students with disabilities are leaving secondary school without competitive integrated employment or being enrolled in post-secondary education, and there is a need to support such students as they transition from school to post-secondary life. WIOA emphasizes transition and youth services throughout. So again, under WIOA, that allowed VR agencies, it requires VR agencies to reserve 15% of their federal funding solely for pre-employment transition services. And again, let me re-emphasize that pre-employment transition services, they can be provided to kiddos who are potentially eligible. Again, must be a student with a disability, ages 14 through 22, and be enrolled in an educational program. And this can include public schools. It can be somebody that's being homeschooled, any recognized, a recognized post-secondary program. If they're attending college and they're still within that age, we can continue to provide pre-employment transition services. So just remember that it does have to be a recognized educational setting. They must be receiving services under IDEA, either special ed or considered 504 eligible. So, and basically the whole purpose of Pre-ETS is to start with career exploration and work preparation a little bit earlier than we have in the past. So, again, we can provide and we can purchase these services to students who are potentially eligible, and also for students who have already been determined eligible for VR services. In that case, the pre-employment transition services can be purchased, but it must be on the plan and their IPE. So, yeah, okay, so let's see, what else do we have with WIOA? So again, as I mentioned before, the 5 required Pre-ETS activities are career exploration, work-based learning, and this can include internships, apprenticeships, paid work experience, counseling on opportunities for enrollment in post-secondary options, workplace readiness, and instruction in self-advocacy. And we're going to talk about some of the programs and some of the strategies that we have developed and approved so that these services can be provided to potentially eligible or Pre-ETS eligible students. Okay, let's see here. So I'm going to list some of the activities. And so under WIOA, some of the Pre-ETS activities that we can provide are, of course, the coordinated. The ones that I just talked about or the required. So those are required. And then the coordinated pre-ETS activities are attending IEP meetings when invited, working with the local workforce development boards, workforce solutions offices, and employers to develop work opportunities for students with disabilities, working with schools to coordinate and ensure the provision of pre-employment transition services, and attending when invited individual center planning meetings for students with disabilities who receive services under Medicaid. And these, again, are the 4 coordinated activities, and some of the strategies that I'm going to talk about later on will cover some of this. And then the 9 authorized pre-ETS activities are implementing effective strategies to increase the likelihood of independent living and inclusion in communities and competitive integrated workplaces, developing and improving strategies for individuals with intellectual disabilities and or significant disabilities to live independently, participate in post-secondary educational experiences, and obtain and retain competitive integrated employment. And then, of course, providing instructions to VR counselors, school transition staff, and others who support students with disabilities. And that's basically a lot of what we do at the state office transition team. We can provide trainings on related to pre-ETS activities, of course. And then, of course, disseminating information about innovative, effective, and efficient approaches to achieving WIOA goals. Coordinating activities with transition services provided by the local education agencies under IDEA. Applying evidence-based findings to improve policy, procedure, practice, and staff preparation to prepare, achieve WIOA goals. And I'm sorry, I've had a really bad cold and I think my voice is kind of wearing off here. But anyway, these 9 authorized activities are basically regional and state office are the ones that are primarily involved in these 9 activities. The field staff, they may sometimes be asked to assist with these, but basically, they're more concentrated on the 4 coordinated and the 5 required activities. But I just wanted you to be familiar with that. Okay, so again, like I talked about earlier, Title IV of WIOA changes in the way transition services are provided through VR. VR programs are required to spend 50% of their federal funding allocation on pre-employment transition services to eligible and potentially eligible students with disabilities. Pre-ETS are intended to provide exposure to concepts and experiences related to building skills for work and independent living, and are therefore more effective when started earlier. So again, I think the last time that I presented on this topic, we were kind of launching some of our strategies, or they were being planned. So when WIOA went into effect back in July of 2017, it required that all states immediately set aside these 50% funds and to begin to deliver services to students with disabilities. So after initial planning and preparation, Texas Workforce Commission implemented strategies to provide these pre-ETS services. The final regulations were issued on August of 2016, and with this final guidance in place, TWC prepared to expand partnerships and collaborative efforts to develop and launch additional pre-ETS initiatives to build on the pre-ETS strategies implemented since 2014. So then that brings us to Pathway to Career initiatives. It was launched, and I'm going to be talking about some of these strategies related to Pathway to Careers. And I'm not sure what the next slide is, but I'm going to talk about some of the strategies. And okay, so I think we already talked about potentially eligible, but again, this was done as a means to give access to pre-ETS activities so that, you know, nobody's left out. So they may or may not apply for VR services. Of course, if they need additional VR services in order to participate in a Pre-ETS activity, then we do encourage that they apply for VR services and go through the VR process in order to be able to receive those additional or support services that they may need. Because as potentially eligible, again, we can only provide pre-ETS services. I think there's a question.
Yes, ma'am. Quick question and clarification, because you've mentioned it a few times, the IPE, the Individual Plan for Employment. I think some parents don't know what that is. Can you explain a little bit about how you get to that?
Sure. Okay. So I think I'm going to tie it into the potential pre-ETS. So if somebody receives a service as a potentially eligible, like let's say, for example, I'm going to talk about Summer Earn and Learn next. So they participate in a paid work experience under the Summer Earn and Learn program. And maybe as a result of that, they decide that they are going to need additional VR services, or maybe to complete that work experience, they need additional VR services, like maybe they'll need help with transportation, if anything that they need to be able to complete that particular activity that cannot be purchased with Pre-ETS, because with Pre-ETS funds, we can only purchase those services that are included in the 5 activities that I have mentioned earlier, which are the core activities. So somebody decides that, okay, we're going to apply for VR. That means that they have to go through the process of applying and then being determined eligible. And then once all of the information is gathered to determine the eligibility, and then maybe the counselor needs to order some additional assessments. All of that information is gathered. Now they're ready to prepare what we call the individualized plan of employment. And that basically what it does is it outlines what the employment goal is, the student's employment goal, and the service providers that are going to be involved along the way. And of course, with transition age kiddos, we know that that plan is probably going to be amended throughout the life of the case, because, you know, they might start off with one vocational goal and maybe decide after some career exploration that they want to do something else. But basically, the IPE, the individualized plan of employment, is what our transition counselor prepares with the student and the parent or the guardian. And again, it outlines the vocational goal, the objectives, the services that we're going to purchase, and the providers that we're going to be using. And some of the kiddos out there might already have an IPE in place. And so every so often your counselor will call and kind of they monitor the progress as far as the services that were decided on. And every year they have to call to do an annual review of the case, and they review that plan, and if additional services are needed, then they're added at that point. We call that an IPE amendment. And so, like I said, I think with transition age kiddos, more than likely they're going to need an amendment at some time or another. But that's what the IPE is, not to be confused with the IEP, which is the school's responsibility. Does that clear it up?
Yes, ma'am, I think that does. Thank you. Okay,
great. So we're going to be talking about the Summer Earn and Learn, and so this is a statewide strategy, and it's part of the Pathway to Career initiatives that I was talking about earlier. And this includes employability skills training and paid work experience for students with disabilities. We offer it in each of the 28 local workforce development boards. And I think the last time I checked, all the boards had already signed up. So for this year, for for 2019. And so basically, again, the student must meet the definition of a student with the disabilities, and this includes current VR customers and those who are potentially eligible. Again, VR customers, they have already applied for services, they've been determined eligible, and they have an IPE. And potentially eligible, they may or may not have applied, but they've been referred to us by the school or by a parent, or so anyway, they want to participate in Summer Earn and Learn. They wouldn't necessarily have an individualized plan for employment. We can still provide this service. We say 14 through 22, but most employers do prefer 16-year-olds. They may make some exceptions, like employers in the public sector. They may make some exceptions to that age, but typically they would like the kiddos to be at least 16. So last year we served over 2,500 students. Over 2,500 students completed the job readiness, because one of the components of Summer Earn and Learn is that they get to participate in work readiness training. And so, so we had over 2,500 students participating in work readiness training prior to participating in their paid work experience. And we had about 2,430 around there who actually participated in the paid work experience as well. And this is in different employment areas and with different companies, both in the private and public sector. And so 20 of the 28 boards exceeded their targets. And so anyway, I think I said earlier that all of them, all the boards have signed on for this year, and I think if they haven't all yet, I think at least 26 of them have, but I'm sure it's just a matter of time with the other ones signing on. Anyway, and so the whole purpose is to increase work-based learning opportunities for students with disabilities through Texas Integrated Workforce System. And this provides participants with foundational employment skills and better prepares them for successful transition to post-secondary education and employment. So that was Summer Earn and Learn. We also have started the Student Hireability Navigator. This program, again, is also part of the expansion of the Pathway to Career initiative. And then the role of the Student Hireability Navigator is to create strong partnerships between vocational rehabilitation, workforce solution offices, independent school districts, community organizations, employers, and others to expand and improve access to employment and training services and to increase employment opportunities for students with disabilities. Excuse me. So there's one navigator in each of the 22 smaller to mid-sized boards and 2 in each of the larger 6. And the larger 6 boards are the Greater Dallas area, Tarrant County, Alamo, North Central, Gulf Coast, and the Lower Rio Grande Valley. So each of the navigators serves as a resource in the workforce area to support, expand, and enhance the provision of pre-employment transition services that are provided by VR as well as other partners. They perform duties and provide deliverables in the following 3 areas: capacity building and system development, partnering and collaboration, and informing and engaging employers. The goal of the activities within these 3 areas is to increase the likelihood that students with disabilities achieve independence and inclusion in communities and competitive integrated workplaces, as well as successful participation in post-secondary education experiences. So that's another neat program that we started as a result of the Pathway to Career initiatives. the next one that I'm going to talk about is charting the course. Through contracts between Texas Workforce Commission and the Education Service Centers, this initiative aims at engaging students with disabilities ages 14 through 22 and their families in education and planning events to support the students' successful transition to post-secondary education. And again, I think that message resonates throughout all of these strategies, where the goal is the successful transition to either post-secondary education or employment. I should say, and or employment. So this initiative involves 4 of the 5 required. So basically, it's going to involve the task orders that we have signed with some of the education service centers will require career exploration, counseling on post-secondary opportunities. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, workplace readiness and instruction in self-advocacy. So, and we do have some of them signed, and they have been signed, but they haven't been started. But it's this year, 14 of the 20 education service centers will have events for 8th grade and 12th graders. And next school year, we're going to add the 9th graders. Most of the education service centers will be on board by next year. So again, more information will be coming on that. And Kevin Markle is our subject matter expert on this. And if there's any questions on that, again, we'll have the information available at the end. But basically, again, this is to engage students in public education, receiving special education or 504, Section 504 services. And again, this also includes private schools, charter schools, and families. And this is going to be a series of education, awareness, and planning events beginning in the 8th grade. And it includes collaboration between the educators and education service staff and potentially RVR staff. So that's charting the course. Again, we're expecting to get that off the ground pretty soon. And another neat strategy that we had last year was Explore STEM. As many of us know, there's many employers that require people to have skills in STEM to be able to work in, especially to be able to work in these areas. So to develop an interest in these STEM fields, students with disabilities need to learn about STEM occupations. So as well as the education and training pathways available to prepare them for STEM-related employment. So with that goal, our goal with Explore STEM was to give students interactive and hands-on exposure and activities, and of course exposure to mentors or people in the field, so that they could become aware and increase their interest in pursuing a career in the STEM field. So some of the camps that took place, I think there was 13 camps this last year, and this was with different colleges and universities, and they ranged everywhere from the origin of the universe, robot mastery, computational engineering, Internet of Things, Lego robotics, building a PC, bionics, building your own galaxy. So we received really positive feedback from parents where the kiddos' interest really increased after participating in these activities. And we're expecting to hold these camps again this year. And I know I'm not sure if we're adding any additional colleges or universities, but for sure we have reached out to the 13 that participated last year. And I wanted to talk to you about Texas OnCourse. As as educators and as parents, this is a really awesome resources. And so this is an initiative from the University of Texas at Austin in partnership with the Texas Education Agency, the Texas Workforce Commission, and the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. And I was actually hoping, and maybe at the end, if we have a little bit of time.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you want, do you want me to open up that website right now, or do you want to wait till the end to?
Let's wait till the end. We'll
Okay.
come back to it, but because it's such an awesome resource, and I'm not sure if a lot of parents, educators are aware of it, but it definitely has so many resources to help in planning for college or a career exploration. It's the way that I describe it is it's kind of like having everything that you can think of Googling, you have it in one resource. So it gives you, for example, if you're talking to a student, or as a parent, if you're talking to your child about attending college, if you go on there, it'll give you the application deadlines, where to apply for financial aid, how to apply, gives you information on specific colleges, specific career clusters, just so many, and it has it broken down. So it starts with middle-aged kiddos, and then it goes 9th and 10th grade, and then 11th and 12th graders. And so it's a really neat resource. And what we did is we funded an instructional module, and it's included in OnCourse, and it's an online advising tool regarding effective strategies and resources for providing college and career counseling to students with disabilities. And the module is available for our VR staff, and it's also available for school professionals so that they can have access to all of these resources. And I think they do have different leaders throughout the state that have participated in their academy, so have a lot of knowledge about this great resource. So I encourage you, it's very easy, just if you just want to skim through it, if we don't have time at the end and you want to skim through it, just go on to Texas OnCourse, and it'll just start navigating through some of the different areas, and it breaks it down by teachers, counselors, parents, so you can go in there and find all sorts of neat information. And so the second part of our contract with Texas OnCourse with UT Austin is to design now either a mobile application or a mobile-first website to help parents and guardians across the state plan for their students' post-secondary and career options. And that's going to be a pretty neat resource. So we have, they have done some surveys. They've surveyed several parents to see how they access information and what type of information or resources they're looking for. So we're looking forward to that, and that's coming up in the future. But the other module for VR and school professionals, that's already in there. So maybe we can go in there and take a look at it later on. But if not, I do encourage you to go on there. It's got wonderful information for not only for planning, but even for kiddos as young as middle school. It's got a little game. It's called Galaxy. I can't remember the name now, but it's called Galaxy, and it's they can go in there and it's actually like playing a video game, so they make it fun for them, and they select different careers, and it gives them information about all of these careers and the clusters and so on and so forth. So and then like it also gives them an idea of the endorsements that they might want to follow, because, you know, they're able to explore different careers. So it's a very helpful tool. And like I said, if we have time at the end, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about it. Now, we also have another new service, which is called Wage Services for VR Participants in Paid Work Experience. And so this, again, we have a contract with each of the boards to purchase wage payment services for participants in paid work experience. And so basically, these paid work experience placements are for VR participants who are students with disabilities and for whom the paid work experience is identified as a service in their IPE, or for students who are potentially eligible. And this is a standalone service from SEAL. So basically, this is year-round, and so the counselor, our transition counselor, will place the student at a job site, and then the board takes care of paying the wages and processing all of that. And so, and basically the work experience is for 20 hours a week. It can't exceed 20 hours a week, and it can't be for more than 12 hours. And so they can participate in more than one of these worksite assignments or paid work experiences, and that's going to be something that the counselor and the will determine if there is a need for any additional paid work assignments. But that's something new that we have started, and so far we've served quite a number of students with this. And it basically, what it does, it gives them the opportunity, it gives students with disabilities the opportunity to obtain some soft and hard skills. They learn about the job, they get hands-on experience, and it's in an actual work setting. So again, this is something new that we just started.
Let me know when you're ready to change slides too.
Okay, well, I think the last slide, and I don't know what happened. I lost my screens. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I think the screen that you had shown before, but even before we go there, I just wanted to say also that we did go through we do have contracts also with over 100 pre-ETS contracted vendors throughout the state. And again, these are services, pre-employment transition services, that the VR counselor can access for either potentially eligible or VR customers who meet the definition of a student with a disability. And some of these proposals that we got are pretty neat, and they vary. Some of them include all of the 5 core activities. Some of them may just be focusing on career exploration. Some of them might just be focusing on career exploration and job readiness. And so it just depends. The proposals are so different. We got just different types of proposals. And so, and this is throughout the state and in every region. The vendors told us, okay, I would like to work in region 1, region 2, and so on and so forth. So for these services, I think the best source would be your local transition counselor, because they can tell you what's available within your local area. But again, these contracted pre-employment transition services focus on career exploration, work-based learning opportunities, instruction in self-advocacy, job readiness training, and counseling on opportunities for enrollment in post-secondary education. And I think that's the last of our services. So the goal again of PCI is to ensure that Texas is effectively preparing students with disabilities to achieve competitive integrated employment throughout participation in employability skills, work readiness training, career exploration activities, work experience, work-based learning, and post-secondary education. So, so basically, those are some of the programs that we have completed from the last time that we met. And I think the screen before this, so those are the regional transition program specialists. In region 1, it's Andrew Castillo. In the Dallas-Fort Worth area, it's Rosla Hawker. In Central Texas, Dae-Yoon Shin. East Texas, I don't think it's vacant. I know we have somebody there. Her name, oh my God, I think it's Leanne Bulwark, and I'll have to get that name out to you. Houston now has a vacancy, and South Texas, I'm not sure. I think it's Myra Gutierrez. And I apologize. I should have looked at this screen. We use this PowerPoint, and I completely forgot that we had some people coming and going. But anyway, you can always contact me if you want to know who or which VR office is closer to you, or where your child needs to apply, or if there's educators out there, if you don't know who your transition counselor is, you please feel free to contact me directly, and I can give you that information. So I think we can open it up now for.
We have lots of questions.
Oh.
Okay. I think you did this, but because you gave us some examples of pre-ETS activities that have been conducted. Given that the majority of the students are school-aged, when do the events take place? How large or small are the groups? And what about transportation? Some of these individuals, I know that when our office went to visit, we were up in Lubbock with the Educational Service Center, and that was one of the biggest challenges, was transportation is such an issue. So
yes, it is. It is, and I think it depends on the region that they're in, but we can help with transportation. But again, it's not, if we're serving somebody who is potentially eligible and transportation is not a pre-ETS service, then that means that they would have to apply for VR in order for us to help them with that.
So if they do
anything that is, I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, so they apply for VR, then you can help with transportation.
They should be able to help them, yes. And I know that transportation has been an issue for a long time, especially with people living in rural areas. But yeah, that's something that they can discuss with their counselor, with their transition counselor, or the counselor that has the case.
Okay.
And I think the other part of the question was that when are these activities going to be held? And like, for example, charting the course, they're expecting to do that either after school or on weekends. Is
it year-round, or is it just in the summer?
It depends on when the Education Service Center said that they were going to provide the service. So I think, like, for example, here in El Paso, the Education Region 19, I think theirs is going to start in June, and I can't remember exactly, but it's within the summer months. But they can also do it after school, or they can do it on weekends. The pre-ETS contracted services, those are typically done on weekends or after school, or in some cases, depending on the partnership with the school, they might be able to do it during the school, if it's not duplicating that effort. So.
Melinda says that we live in a very rural area and services are very limited, and most of the time the special education department doesn't know who to turn to. Who do we contact to get help for training at the schools? I mean, to make that relationship connection.
Yes, and I think maybe that would be a great role for the student higher ability navigator. But I think if you can send your information to Randy, and then Randy will forward your information, and I'll circle back to you where and to who you can contact, because.
Or your email's on the.
Yes, my email is on there.
Right now,
or you can email me directly. Yes. Yes.
I don't need to be a middleman.
Okay.
If the child has an IPE, and one of the goals is transportation, if a child is able to get a driver's license, are there any programs to help with the cost of driver's education or fees associated with obtaining a license?
Under regular VR, that may be possible, but not under pre-ETS.
Okay.
So if they have an IPE, what I would recommend is that they talk to their counselor about that service.
Are the opportunities based on personal interest, or who has signed on to provide work opportunities?
I'm not sure I understand that question. Is this
Is it just based on, I think what they're trying to say is do you just have a certain limited number of opportunities available in these field areas, or is it based on the person's interest? Maybe something that you need to create, or how does that work?
Like I said, if it's a pre-ed service, we have over 100 vendors, and so maybe they're going to do career exploration in the area that the student is interested in, and so that's basically how that would work. So our services are based on individual need. So okay. We're not going to put somebody to explore a job in, say, for example, the business, if they're interested in hotel, or if they're interested in doing something else. So the counselor works with them, and the whole purpose of this pre-ed services is to get them started a little bit younger in doing some of that career exploration that the student is interested in.
Yeah, and they might find that once they get into it that they're not as interested as they thought they were, which is a great too. Yeah,
exactly.
They're not wasting their time studying into down one field, one track, and then finding out that's really not what
for example,
job coaches provide
yes,
this?
they can, like for summer earn and learn, they can be. And the other thing that I was going to say is like the STEM camps are a great opportunity. I apologize. They're a great opportunity for kiddos. Maybe some of the kiddos that participated learn that wasn't an area for them. So it's based on need, on their interest.
Okay. Are the providers able to provide services in conjunction with the school, or do they have to occur after school hours?
In some areas, it depends on how their proposal was written and their relationship with the school. If that's something that their school is, I am so sorry. I apologize. This has been going on for.
Been sick, I know.
Yeah. So, yeah, it depends on, there's some proposals that were written that way, and I think it's based on the relationship that they have with the school. But charting the course, that's going to be done through the education service centers.
Okay.
But in cases like, for example, for potentially eligible, it's really the schools that are referring them to us, because let's say we have an activity like Summer Earn and Learn, and they want this kiddo to participate.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know if they're going to, if they want to apply. Maybe the parent isn't sure if they want to apply for VR services and go through the whole process, but they know that they want them to obtain these employment skills, this hands-on experience, so we can serve them.
Very good.
So the school works, they refer to the counselor.
Who do we contact about these summer camps for kids who are in VR? That's the first part of the question. The second is the ESC 15 working with TWC with programs for kids in VR? Who are already, the kids who are already, I guess, signed up for VR services.
Again, let me clarify. We can serve students who are potentially eligible, but if they're already have been determined eligible for VR services and they have an IPE, they have a counselor that they're working with, they need to just contact the counselor and say, we're interested in participating in some of these pre-ed services, or can you tell us some of the services that are being provided here at the local level?
Very good, very good. Let's see. I work for a LIDDA, I don't know what that means, as an employment specialist. Given that students can obtain pre-ETS without applying, Will TWCVR have a record of the students that receive these services? Can I find out if a student has already received work readiness training?
We
I don't know if that might be a confidentiality.
Yeah, I was going to say that we do track the services that we provide to potentially eligible, because we have to purchase the services. So we do have we do have a way of keeping track. Typically, we enter their information into what we call initial contact. That's just somebody who calls and says, "I'm interested in services." And so they're in initial contact. And that's just very basic information, maybe just the student's name, date of birth, the school that they're going to, very minimal information, but enough for us to be able to generate that service authorization to pay for the pre-ed service. So yes, we would be able to, we do know who's participated in pre-ed activities. However, we can't disclose information unless we have the permission of the parents.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Do you plan, and we haven't talked about this, but somebody's asking if there would be a webinar on becoming an ETS provider? And when is the next open enrollment period for those who want to apply for a pre-ETS contract?
So we just had a pre-ETS open enrollment that closed on May of 2018. And most of those contracts, I would say, if not all, have been awarded. That whole service is going to be changing. So the standards for that is going to be changing. I don't really know if we're going to go about it as an open enrollment, because we did get, for example, in Dallas, we received a whole lot of proposals where maybe in Region 1 in the Lubbock, El Paso area, we don't have as many. So I think it still hasn't been decided how it's going to be requested, if it's going to be only for certain areas, because there are already a lot in a certain region. I'm not sure yet how that's going to happen, but if it does, just keep an eye on the open enrollment on the electronic business daily. So that's how I would check periodically in there. And if it does, I mean, it should be, I think it would have already been, because they usually close in May. So I'm not sure that there's going to be another open enrollment this year. I'll have to check. But if you can send me your question directly, I can answer that to you.
Perfect.
For you.
Are the hireability navigators able to issue purchase orders, or is that solely a function of VR?
No, that's solely a function of VR.
We did have one individual, and I asked a question, but I didn't get a reply. So let me pose her question. She said, these services sound great, but my 3 adult children with varying degrees of severity of autism would not qualify or be able to function in this type of training. So I'm not sure if it's because they're over 21 but VR can still provide services
yes.
if they're employable, right?
Yes, they may not be eligible for pre-employment if they're over the age of 22, but they can still have a case with us with regular transition, which is up to the age of 24. So if they don't have a case already, maybe they need to contact their counselor. If they have a case and they're already receiving VR services, and maybe talk to the counselor of what services are available. I know that we do have a Jennifer Hines is an excellent resource for
autism.
For autism, exactly.
In fact, we're doing a webinar in April.
Mm-hmm.
And next month we're doing a webinar about employing people with autism on the whole spectrum, from
the whole spectrum,
lower level positions to engineers. And so I'll make sure that everybody has information about our future webinars. If an individual says, if I remember correctly, if there is an area that needs services, they may be able to get a contract, or may be able to get in under an emergency contract. Is that correct? Do you know anything about emergency contracts?
No, I sure don't. I honestly, I know in the past, like for example, with the blind services, if there was a shortage of orientation and mobility specialists, you know, that might be something, but I'm honestly not familiar with that. But again, if you want to send me your question, I can check. I can check with my supervisor or try to find out for you which services would require an immediate contract. That's the only thing that came to my mind, because I know that when there's a shortage, but I think nowadays everything has to go based on what is needed in that area, and then it's advertised on the electronic business daily. So I'm not aware of any emergency contracts, but again, that doesn't mean that they don't exist. I can find out for you if you want to send me your question directly, and then I'll circle back with you.
That was the last question I see, but I wanted to take a look. I'm going to move this over here. Hang on just a second. I'm going to switch some stuff around on my screen so we can kind of look at this OnCourse website. Tell me where to click.
So I mean, you can click there if you're going into the students and families, and you're looking at 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So if you scroll down.
Okay. And
so this is some of the information. Yeah, and see, that's the Middle Galaxy game that I was talking about. They can start mapping their graduation requirements, looking at high school endorsements. So these are some of the services available for middle schoolers. Yeah. So if you could scroll down. Yeah. And, okay, scroll down a little bit.
A little bit more, okay.
A little bit more, see? So it just gives you a lot of information. So if you go in there, for example, and you want to do some career exploration, you can go in there to the jobs and careers, and it gives you the different career options, the different clusters, and some of them, I think, let's see, let's go.
Let's visit that and see.
Let's visit that.
So this takes you, what's really cool, Zenaida and I looked at this the other day, is that what you might usually search the web for, like career possibilities, or you're looking for financial aid, or you're looking for colleges and universities, you have to do all these searches through whatever internet engine you use. But here, everything's in one place, which is just really, really cool. You just have to kind of search the
I think if you, yeah, if you can go back to, okay, no, that's, I mean, just show them, yeah. But if you can go back to the home, and then maybe we can, student and families, student and families.
Student and families, okay.
And then if you scroll down a little bit, and then let's go to, say, 11th and 12th grade.
All right.
Scroll down. Scroll down a little bit. So see, it gives you important deadlines here, like June SAT test dates, deadline to register for ACT. And then if you go in there to the bottom where it says college planning, I think it'll also give you the deadline for financial aid. Yeah, and it links you to FAFSA. It should link you up to FAFSA.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah. So, I mean, this information is good for both parents and educators or school counselors when they're working with kiddos, to be able to give them the information that they need. And then the students can also get on here, of course. And I think the other one, the Map My Grad, they can log in and they can create an account and log in and log out and keep track of you know, their progression.
So here's your different jobs and careers. And so interest inventories, I'm sure, are probably part of this.
They're in there.
Texas reality check. If any of you parents have never seen this, get your kids to do this, because it does give you a reality check on what does it cost to live on my own? You know, what is it going to take? And it's a lot more than I think they realize. It's more than just rent. Few more links in here. Lots of information.
Lots and lots of information. So everything that you need in one place. It's like a one-stop for everything.
All right. So we wanted to just at least show you where that's located. I did send everyone the link.
Awesome.
To that. We've had another question come in the meantime. Does TWCVR work with children who are in DADS services coordination? Is there any present or future plans? Let's see. Our future plans, those two services working together. Oh, those two, not TO. Those two, I think they mean what was DADS, I guess is now HHSC. But those services in coordination with TWCVR, those two organizations, agencies, will you be doing anything together, coordinating things together?
Well, I mean, if the student meets, the definition of a student with a disability, there's nothing that would prevent them from participating with us. So yes, we can serve them. Health and Human Services, I know, and they still refer, like with the Blind Children's Program, we still get referrals from them into the program. So yes, we do work with them.
Okay. Well, I don't see any other questions coming up, Zenaida. I really appreciate your time this evening, and all of the participants that we've had join us as well. Again, if you have any questions, I'm going to put her email back up here. So Zenaida is right here. And these are some of the other transition team staff for VR.
Yes.
Reach out to them with your questions, any additional questions you may have. Otherwise, I think we'll just call it a day. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. And please, if you have any follow-up questions, don't hesitate to email me, and I'll be glad to respond as quickly as I can. And thank you for participating. And any questions about whether your child or your student qualifies, just ask, refer them, and then we'll determine that.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.